Hey, Matthew here, psychologist in Ottawa. So, when it comes to most relationships, communication is often the thing that makes relationships more difficult. And I don't know anyone who really loves conflict, but conflict is often an inevitable part of any kind of relationships. People are not going to agree about everything all the time. But if you want to be able to have low conflict relationships, it's really important to think about how to de escalate situations before they become ugly. The best way, I think, to de escalate a situation out of the gate is to demonstrate to the person you're talking with that you've actually heard them and that you're listening to them. It sounds simple, but oftentimes conversations move at such a pace that if, one person brings up something difficult, the other person may jump into problem solving mode without really understanding the problem, or it might trigger difficult feelings in them, and so they just want to shut down the conversation as quickly as possible. And, that might work in the moment, I suppose, to shut down a conversation, but it's going to come back more than likely. So, really, being able to demonstrate that you've heard the other person, it demonstrates that you respect them. It demonstrates that you're not starting out from the point of trying to convince them why they're wrong, why their feelings are wrong. It can be a bit disarming in that if the other person feels like they really have to prove their feelings are right, if you're demonstrating that you're listening, that really, it stops that part of the conflict from going to the next level. And you can stay with the matter at hand. Some pretty effective ways of demonstrating that you're listening is to respond back with either a paraphrase, so like a summary of what the person said, or demonstrating that you understand the uncommunicated feelings that didn't come out in the statement. So, yeah, I hear how hard this is for you, is a good example, or I hear how upset you are about this thing. Now, demonstrating that you're hearing someone doesn't mean you're demonstrating that you agree with them, that you think what they said is accurate, that you also believe what they said. What it demonstrates is that you're open. So if what you're hearing on the other end is something that you don't agree with, you don't understand, if you think that the other person's interpretation is a bit off, if you approach it with curiosity rather than trying to convince them they're wrong, that also keeps the conflict from getting bigger. So, I don't really understand how you got there. Can you help walk me through what you're thinking and feeling? Or, oh, I don't see all the links in how you drew that conclusion. Can you spell it out for me a little bit more clearly? These are ways to gently challenge the other person, and that, sometimes in the explanation, more information comes out, and you start to hear more about maybe what the other person is worried about might happen, or what the other person's fears are, or what their concerns are. And you can work with that if they are realistic. And if they're not realistic, there's room then to say, oh, I don't know how likely that is, or maybe we don't have all the information at hand. But these are ways to keep conflict low. Similarly, if instead of being the person who's listening, if you're the person who's frustrated, you might be able to start saying things like, I feel like you're moving into problem solving before you've really heard me, or I don't feel like you really heard me here. And that's a way to take a pause instead of it escalating, and to be able to stick with what it is you're really trying to say, and making sure you feel heard before the conversation moves on to the next step. Also, if you feel like in your relationships with people, you're always doing the listening and it's never your turn to raise concerns, that is a bit of a red flag. You might think about why that is and if that's the way you want to proceed. Because if it's always all one way, chances are it's not going to work out so well. The all one-way relationships are probably more for parents and young children and less for friends or partners or colleagues. In any event, things to think about. I'm going to go be with some hearts that beat. Look after yourselves and each other today. Ciao!